it's not exactly sending the data properly. Twitch and Facebook are both working perfectly fine, but not YouTube. And YouTube is the majority place, so that seems to be where we seem to be having a lot of issues, and we're having to do. I mean, post-production is going to be a lot of fun tonight, where we're trying to sit down there and get all the bits that lining up. Okay, for those who from what I've gathered, YouTube has started working again. I'll send out the link on here. If Jason or Alex on, because I gather Alex, you're now watching on Twitch. If you can also go through and give that, possibly put that link on the old stream, please do so. And I'll just give a 30-second wait to see if we can get the audience to refresh itself. But yeah, this is really frustrating. So something is definitely going wrong with the YouTube servers tonight, because this is only affecting YouTube. This is not affecting. This is not affecting Twitch, and it's not affecting Facebook. So yeah, so I've gone and put the link on there. Yeah, if you can sit there, if you want to sit there and do that, Jason. Can you also possibly put the link on our on the old streams of what the latest stream is? This is it's quite weird. Today must just be a bad day with YouTube servers, but I don't remember YouTube servers just like dropping in and out like crazy. It just seems to be the way to do it. But while at the same time, Twitch and Facebook aren't dropping. So yeah, if you wanted to migrate over to our to either our Facebook or our YouTube, our Twitch channels as well, you're welcome to join us there. Not often people tend to follow us on those channels. We tend to have them on YouTube. And that's where the majority of our viewership comes from for live shows. When it comes to our shorts and all that sort of thing, TikTok's apparently the best, but I mean, trying to sit there and live stream onto TikTok is just an absolute nightmare on it. Okay, so we've reset streams, we're getting our audience back, we're having a fun day. I mean, I'm so glad Laura ain't here. Otherwise, Laura will be going like, you know, we'll be having a lot of fun on trying to sit there and make this work. So let's kick off with Uncle Andy.
Andy Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, as I said in the previous debate, the most important thing that we want out of our building system is that we get good outcomes for the people that end up with the end product, the houses, the homes that people live in. This bill, though, is about trust. It's about trust in the competence, of our professional drainlayers and plumbers, as you've just heard from our licensed building practitioner. Mr. Speaker, this allows professional plumbers and drainlayers to self-certify and to certificate their work, and it brings them in line with other building practitioners. Mr. Speaker, this sets up a regime where the board, the Plumbers and Gas Fitters and Drainlayers Board, has the power to endorse plumbers and drainlayers. It doesn't mean it has the power to, which means that they can say, well, look, are these people competent to do the job that they are doing to the level which is required to be done so that they can self-certify. It doesn't mean that they will self-certify everybody, because obviously when you start doing that, if people are not doing the job properly, it comes back on them as a board, saying, what are you doing certifying these people? So they will do that, I expect, with care and attention to make sure that they are certificating and endorsing the right people to make sure they do the job properly. And also, Mr. Speaker, they say it is about self-certifying certain work, so set by regulation. Doesn't mean every piece of work, doesn't mean the really, really complicated pieces which you might have a third party have a look over. It means self-certifying certain work. And Mr. Speaker, this also means that the self-certification then relies on in many areas of construction, we already have these producer statements, which in fact often councils, as the Building Consents Authority, farm those out to whether it might be an engineer or whoever it might be, and says if they're happy with it, then we're happy with it. So effectively, they're already doing that in so many complicated areas of the business. Two final points to make, Mr. Speaker, because we've heard these in the debate already. The point that's been made about making sure that that if something goes wrong, there is a process and a way in which the homeowner, the recipient of the end product, can actually get satisfaction from somebody who can put it right. In Wellington, the phrase, it's the putting right that counts, will be familiar to many people. That is absolutely essential. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of sympathy for the point that Arena Williams made about Phoenix businesses. We don't want the situation where people can wind up a business, the 2024 version of business, create a 2025 version or 2026 version. We want the individual to be responsible for the work that they do, so that, that if they do it wrong and they don't put it right, then there is a consequence on them, so that I'm sure that they will, as professionals, do the job properly. And Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
And
good on you, Uncle Andy, for sitting there and mentioning the point about Phoenix businesses. And it's great because that's something that New Zealand First has been very active on, is they are really against Phoenix businesses. That was part of the reason why they supported the Crime Theft by Employer Amendment Bill as well, for the exact same reasons of you can wind up your dodginess into one company, set up a new company, and suddenly you're not dodgy while your director is just as dodgy. So that is really good on that particular one there, and I'm glad New Zealand First is sticking to its principles on there. And thanks, Jason, for sitting down there and sharing our Twitch channel as well as the backup. So if the stream goes down on YouTube, you can also follow us on Twitch. It feels weird that I'm actually promoting that one on Twitch on there, because I mean we do get some audience on Twitch, but it's not constantly consistent, or if it is, it's Ray Ching is the most common Twitch watcher, because that he said it's easier on the links trying to watch on Twitch. Okay, so we're going to skip over Dan Bidwara again because he's done a seat warmer speech, and go to Ruben Davidson.
And I stand to take a call on the second building and construction bill, this being the self-certification by plumbers and drainlayers amendment bill. And I think this is we do support this bill, but with reservations. And as speakers from this side of the House have taken the time to talk about needing to see robust safeguards and needing to see consumer protections, because speed cannot compromise safety, quality or consumer rights. Another simpler way of putting it is that fast and efficient can't become quick and dirty, because that's not what we want in our construction sector. Now, we're very proud on this side of the House in the Labour Party. We've always said that New Zealanders deserve homes that are affordable, that are built to last. So when it comes to making sure we can do that affordably, to cutting the costs to do that, that's all well and good, but it can't be at the expense of cutting corners. And we know that our plumbers and drainlayers, our good tradies, carry very heavy responsibility and liability for the work that they do. So we need to make sure that the standards and the access to the appropriate products are there for those professionals to be able to do the work that they need to do, to be able to do it quickly, but also to have the protections there for them. Now, I have a story I want to share from a installation that I had at my home, where I decided to install gas to have a gas facility in my kitchen for cooking, and I brought a professional installer in, and this was some time ago, and the professional installer came to my home and installed a gas hob in my kitchen, which worked beautifully, and I was able to cook fantastic food and have a perfectly functioning gas hob in my kitchen. But what happened when I went to do the washing up was that I pulled the plug out of the sink, and the sink drained, and all of a sudden across my kitchen floor there was a puddle of water coming from under the skirting board in the corner of the kitchen. This had never happened before. It was a very puzzling situation for me. Now, what had happened was that the water waste pipe from the sink ran diagonally through the wall at a surprising angle, surprising to the gas installer, who had managed to drill the gas pipe directly through the water waste pipe and safely install gas to run to my hob. So what this meant was that I could safely operate my gas hob, and I had an airtight, perfect gas installation, but I had a leaky waste pipe draining the sink under my kitchen bench. Now, luckily, I spotted it pretty quickly, and luckily, the professional tradesperson took it very seriously and came around and remediated it immediately. But it did make me think, what if it had been the other way around? What if the water pipe had gone through the gas pipe? The result would have been quite different. Now, the point of that story is that we do need to provide very clear protections for our tradespeople, but also very, very strong protections for us as consumers in our homes if we are building or carrying out renovations and people are going to be self-certifying their work. We owe it to our tradies to get this right. And that is why the support that we bring for this bill does have reservations, because at the select committee process, we need to make sure that we are providing both the consumers, the owners or people who will live in homes that will be built under these changed and amended regulations. We need to make sure that they are going to be living in homes that, if they have been self-certified, are safe. But we also need to make sure that our tradies, many of whom own their own businesses and are working really hard to make it all balance and make it all work, that there are protections in place for them so that they don't get caught out and get caught short and lose their businesses as a result of carrying this further administrative burden. So it is with reservations that we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben, for that personal story. And as you would have seen my reaction at the time of watching it, my mouth completely opened the fact that if the situation was the water pipe went through the gas instead of the gas going through the water, that would have been an absolute fire disaster potentially happening, because you could sit down and have the leak, you can hit the spark thing to ignite the flame on the stove, and could have gone kaboom. It could, yeah. So, it is very scary to hear that happening with Ruben. And thank you for sharing that story of a real life experience of what happens when it goes wrong. And thank goodness your gas fitter was an honest tradesperson who remediated the work. But yeah, that is quite interesting how that happened. Now, let's get to the fun part at the end of it, where it goes with the whole voting part. So let's kick that off.
This is supposed to be part of a package that also includes insurance and liability, and we do need those settings to be right.
No, the ayes have it. No, the...
This is supposed to be part of a package that also includes insurance and liability, and we do need those settings to be right. And if they are not right, then it will cost everyone a whole lot more.
Tom Rutherford.
Speak, Robert, speak.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Building and Construction Sector Self-Certification by Plumbers and Drainlayers Amendment Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Building and Construction Sector Self-Certification by Plumbers and Drainlayers Amendment Bill be considered by the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The Honourable James Meagher.
Speaker, I move that the Building and Construction Sector Self-Certification by Plumbers and Drainlayers Amendment Bill be reported to the House by 19 March 2026.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote is called for. Please conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
Toru te kaumawha e whakahe.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumarima ngā poti whakahe.
Act New Zealand. New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E whā ngā poti whakahe.
Tāku Te Wheres.
Kotahi te poti whakahe.
Māori Meno Kapakingi.
Kotahi te poti whakahe.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed. Call on Government Order of the Day number 4.
Overseas Investment, National Interest Test and Other Matters.
Okay. So, again, the opposition is supporting the bill, but not supporting a truncated select committee time. Now, let's get to the super chat. Gee, Alex. Now, this is on the previous stream, but somehow Restream likes to actually retain it in there. Just wanting people to know, the people who breach Manage My Health have a reputation of breaching health databases in the US, such as Doctors Alliances, and demanding ransom of $200 US. That doesn't surprise me. Thanks for that useful piece of information on that one. Okay, let's now. Everything has to always go a bit haywire here, and on a, fingers crossed we do not sit there and do that. And as you can see there, Jason is showing you how you can watch us live on Twitch at the same time if we are unable to sit down there and actually get through that. Wait a minute, that is the wrong bill. That is the wrong... Oh, no. That is the wrong bill because I clicked on the wrong links. Silly me. So here, so we are here and we've got the bill ready to go. So yes, third time's charm, we've got 3 bills tonight because these are short readings. This bill is Meteorological Service Acquisitions and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill, which I believe is mainly to do with the lovely thing called the weather.
But like I said, Mr. Chair, at its heart, and the reason
regime, it strengthens over.
That opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Telecommunications and Other Matters Amendment Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Telecommunications and Other Matters Amendment Bill be considered by the Economic Development, Science and Innovation Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I call on Government Order of the Day number 11.
Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill, first reading.
The Honourable Chris Peck.
Mr. Speaker, I present a legislative statement on the Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website.
I move that the Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Economic Development, Science and Innovation Committee to consider the bill. Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to bring this bill to the House on behalf of the Minister. The purpose of the bill is to allow for Met Service, a state-owned enterprise, or SOE, to be acquired by Earth Sciences New Zealand, a Crown Research Institute referred to in the bill by its legal name, the New Zealand Institute for Earth Science Limited. The bill also will require Earth Sciences New Zealand to publish its access policy for observational weather data. Mr. Speaker, the bill brings our 2 Crown-owned weather forecasting companies back together. It will provide more connected weather forecasting and investment for the well-being and safety of New Zealanders, protect our infrastructure and support the growth of our economy. Weather forecasting provides many economic, social, environmental and cultural benefits to New Zealanders. It's an input to many of the goods and services we enjoy. Accurate and timely weather forecasting allows for safer travel and personal pursuits, more informed farming and better decisions on how and where to build infrastructure. For example, farmers rely on short and long-term forecasts to plan irrigation and protect crops. Knowing when rain or severe weather is coming can mean the difference between a good harvest and safe animals on the one hand, or a costly loss. Further, airlines rely on accurate and timely weather forecasts for route selection and safer air travel. Weather forecasting is also relied upon heavily in the built environment, for example in terms of building site selection, resilience in design, worker safety, build scheduling and project budgeting. Of course, as cricket fans know, Mr. Speaker, the reliable way to know if rain is forecast for a particular area is to check Cricinfo for an upcoming ODI, T20 or Test match. Bringing the nation's 2 weather forecasters together was a key recommendation in the Weather Forecasting Review. I acknowledge our colleague and friend, the Honourable Judith Collins, for some of her early work in that regard, of course brought forward subsequently by our other colleague and friend in the space, the Honourable Dr Shane Reti. Madam Speaker, we expect to address a number of identified problems as a result of the review now leading to this legislation, including uncertainty during severe weather events due to inconsistent messaging from having 2 Crown-owned weather forecasters. This has created increased risks to public safety, infrastructure, property and the economy. Next, a lack of integration between climate science, forecasting, hydrology and coastal hazards, resulting in fragmented weather forecasting advice. And finally, inefficiencies within the weather forecasting system as evidenced by duplicated effort and investment. Madam Speaker, this change will provide a more connected weather forecasting system that brings climate science, forecasting, hydrology and coastal hazards together to provide truly integrated advice. The change will deliver economic benefits by providing holistic weather forecasting that individuals and businesses can rely upon. It will also improve understanding of hazards, strengthening our ability to plan for and build resilience against severe weather events. Madam Speaker's own electorate is all too familiar with the dangers associated with heavy and severe weather events such as flooding. Put simply, we are creating a weather forecasting system that meets the needs of New Zealand now and into the future. Key features of the bill, Madam Speaker, include that it is relatively short but technical. It's designed to enable the acquisition of Met Service and improve transparency around weather data policies. But I would like to take this opportunity to summarise some of its key features. Specifically, the bill 1 removes Met Service from the State-Owned Enterprises Act 1986, allowing it to be acquired by Earth Sciences New Zealand. 2 exempts the acquisition of Met Service by Earth Sciences New Zealand from Part 3 of the Commerce Act 1986. a relief to us all, I'm sure. 3, requires Earth Sciences New Zealand to publish its access policy for observational weather data. And 4, includes standard provisions to make the transition smooth and protect existing agreements. For example, the acquisition won't give anyone the right to cancel a lease, end a contract or speed up obligations just because the ownership changes. Following the acquisition, Met Service will cease to be a state-owned enterprise and will become a wholly owned subsidiary of Earth Sciences New Zealand. Bringing Met Service and Earth Sciences New Zealand together is a broader part of the organisational changes we are making to our science, innovation and technology system. These changes to the weather forecasting system are part of the biggest science system reforms in over 30 years, creating scale, efficiency and alignment across our science organisations so that they deliver greater benefits for all of New Zealand. Madam Speaker, this bill is about more than integrating organisations. It is about building a weather forecasting system that protects lives, strengthens our economy and ensures that New Zealand is ready for the challenges of a changing climate. And a changing final paragraph, I commend this bill to the House.
And I seem to have a feeling that on these bills that are somewhat good or have good intentions behind them seem to be being fronted by Chris Pink, who seems to be one who comes across as a minister that has just a little bit more integrity than much of what happens in there. For those who are wondering, Chris Pink, I think, is a minister outside of cabinet, just for that reference as well. So, yeah, or maybe he's just a minister that seems on duty on that day, because Shane Reedy, the actual minister in charge of the bill, wasn't in the House on the day it went into urgency. So now let's see what Deep Seek has brought up on the bill that bring up some arguments, all presented by supporters of government. The best arguments is approving and addressing the merger is show it, not just read it, is the improved public safety and cohesion, the enhanced integration and efficiency, the economic and social benefits for to improve access and future-proofing and reliance, and logical reorganisation of science systems. So some of the worst arguments against the bill, as being presented by the opposition, was the context of broader cuts and brain drain, politicisation of science, private risk and weakening oversight, disconnect between reform and resourcing, missed opportunity for marginalised communities. So, yeah. And something that's quite interesting to notice on there is popular across the right wingers on the internet. I wouldn't just say that. I would also say that he's not just. He's not. I've known people who progressively sit on the left, but have found him as one of the easier national MPs to actually deal with. Probably a more open-minded MP. Put it this way: if he was the Minister of Labour, he probably would meet with the CTU, for example, whereas Brooke Van Velton doesn't and refuses to. So, yeah, there are different things in there. But, yeah, he's probably popular with the right wingers, but I think he's also popular with some of those more level-headed people as well. Let's get on to the second speech, which is Glenn Bettnett.
So well, until I was ready. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Stuart.
Madam Speaker, thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a privilege to take a call on the Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill. And I just would like to acknowledge, being Movember, the member who's just taken his seat's attempt at supporting Movember. And it's evident we're under urgency because I had hoped that it would have advanced since the last bill, but it remains more of a suggestion than a SALIC. The bill at hand today, Madam Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to allow for the acquisition of the Meteorological Service of New Zealand Limited, we know it as the Met Service, by the New Zealand Institute for Earth Sciences Limited, or the NZIES, and to require the NZIES to publish its access policy for observational weather data. So that's what this bill sets out to do. Now, Met Service, as we've heard, is the designated provider of severe weather forecasts and warnings for New Zealand under the Met Service Act 1990 and is currently a state-owned enterprise. Its purpose is to help us all stay safe, help us all make informed decisions based on timely and accurate weather forecasts, including during severe weather events. And we have seen, and even in the last bill, talked about some of the impacts those can have. Now, it's important up top to make it clear that reform was required in this space. But cuts are cuts, and I will continue to call them out when we see them. It's important that we talk about what's really going on across our science sector and across our science community. Because whilst we can talk about alignment and whilst we can talk about going for growth, what we need to see in this sector is that that growth and that talk of alignment is actually matched in budget and is actually matched in investment and is actually an investment into these very important fields of work and expertise. And instead what we're seeing at this point in time is a huge number of job losses. We're seeing bigger investments in redundancies at Callaghan of $11 million than we are in some really important areas of our science sector and science community. So let's not kid ourselves when we talk about going for growth and when we talk about investing in innovation and when we talk about investing in research and development. Let's not kid ourselves that what we're actually seeing here in real terms is cuts to the sector that drives discovery, that drives our science, that drives our innovation. So let's not dress all of that up and disguise those very real cuts, those very real job losses in our science sector that will mean that we continue to lose many of our best and brightest overseas where the opportunities are. And this is not just me calling this out, this is a number of people across the sector, including the recipient of the Prime Minister's Prize, who has had some fairly blunt things to say, both about the Prime Minister and particularly about the science budget, or the lack thereof. The reprioritisation of funding into things like roads rather than into critical areas of science where it could make a real difference for all New Zealanders. There's a suspicion that this is a government that wants to silence science rather than invest properly in it to see the kind of innovation that New Zealand needs and that New Zealand deserves. Now, what this bill also does, to come back to it, is it amends the State-Owned Enterprises Act 1986 to remove the listing of Met Service as a state enterprise. It also exempts the acquisition of Met Service by NZIES from Part 3 of the Commerce Act. And one of the other things that I think we need to keep a close eye on is that it amends the State-Owned Enterprises Meteorological Service of New Zealand Limited and Vehicle Testing New Zealand Limited Amendment Act 1999 to repeal certain provisions in the Act that will become redundant when this bill is enacted. Now, I said that very quickly, so you may have missed that Vehicle Testing New Zealand Limited is in there too. And for a government that's also started talking about wanting to sell some things off, I think we need to keep a very close eye on anything that starts to move the areas in which some of these state-owned assets sit, starts to move some of that legislation around. So we do support the bill, but not a government that disrespects and underfunds science, and that is what we've got at the moment.
Well, that's actually interesting, the bits that Ruben has brought up. Sorry, the name that, as you would have seen on there, was Glenn Bennett, then it was Ruben Davidson. So obviously that was Ruben's speech. But no, it's good. It was quite an interesting speech to be put on there about the fact that in the same particular bill might have something to do with VTNZ. So, yeah, and I noticed there's some comments there about Chris Pink. I can also confirm right now Chris Pink also did appear as an interview on Behind the Wall with both Blake and Paul. So he was one who is willing to get across there. Yes, Paul and Blake have managed to get a national minister. Okay, let's continue more with Scott Willis from the Greens.
Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Willis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as we have heard, that this reform is part of the biggest science system reforms in 30 years, and the Green Party supports this bill, but we support it with concerns. We want to express some concerns because, of course, we have seen a government that is not favouring science, despite a reform that we heard and we understand is making some good progress in some areas. But as my colleague Ruben Davidson has just said, there are very real job losses in our science sector. We are experiencing a brain drain at the moment because the bigger picture is that these reforms are probably transgressing all of Vannevar Bush's 5 fundamentals. That stability, we want stability in the science sector. At the moment we've got hyper-contestability, full cost funding, politicisation of science and priorities, and defunding. And that is a problem. That is a problem, Madam Speaker, because if we politicise science, we lose the true value of it for society. We also see that there's a lack of expertise and experience because we are seeing a loss of capability, because of the job losses, because of the defunding of our science sector. We are losing people. We're losing some of our youngest and brightest, but we're also losing some of our most experienced at this point in time. So that's another concern, Madam Speaker. And we don't think that the government should operate or direct the laboratories funded. What we're seeing is an ongoing erosion of independent governance, Madam Speaker. And there we see some institutional independence at risk, and we also must ensure that we've got accountability, but we've got, at the moment, overheads, lack of transparency in what's happening in our science system. So while this merging makes sense, we are seeing a whole range of other issues in the science sector because the government has decided, in its wisdom, that science is not a priority, that science does not need the funding despite the most radical reforms in 30 years. It's got to find the money to do that from within the sector, and it's got to try and retain staff that have no job security because they don't know what the hell's going on. And this is where we see the disjuncture between what the government wants to do. It wants to do the reform of the science system on the cheap, because we are one of the countries that invests the least in our science system. And we also know that investing in our science system gives us, for every dollar invested, gives us between $8 and $20 back, boosting our economy. But in going for growth, this government doesn't value that, because when science disagrees with their desires, such as cutting the methane target, then it is ignored. And this is the real problem that we have. So while it's nice to think that we might need to understand what the weather's doing for cricket games, we also need to know what the cost of reducing our methane target is for our climate commitments, for our climate targets. We also need to know what the impact of importing dirty cars has for our climate commitments. This is evidence that we need as well. And so, Madam Speaker, my concern is that this is a bill that we'll support, but it is part of the breakdown in our science system, the defunding of our critical science system, that is sending our youngest, our brightest and our most capable scientists overseas at a time when we need them the most. That's my concern, Madam Speaker, and that's the concern of the Green Party, that this government only respects science when it does its bidding and rejects it when it doesn't. That is a concern. That's the politicisation of science that we cannot afford in this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, Scott Willis has mentioned some good bits about the politicisation of science. And yeah, going on there. Also from was it Fortuna? I think that's how you said it. Why does New Norway pay marine biologists a healthy salary but we cut ours? Because our politicians are short-sighted, because having a marine biologist is nice to have, not an essential function of society. And that's the problem is we keep regarding essential things of society as nice to haves, not as essential functions of society. And that is the problem with the way we do things in New Zealand, as people who just they don't understand, so it's a nice to have. Oh, I don't understand it, so it must be a nice to have. I mean, hey, if they didn't sit there and understand that you had to put petrol in a car, going to the petrol pump is probably a nice to have, not an essential thing to run a internal combustion engine that runs on petrol. Or the same thing when it comes to EV charging. There's some people who don't own EVs, so they believe on-street EV charging should not exist, not understanding how EV technology actually works. Despite the fact that, in the city like Wellington, we should be encouraging it, Okay, let's get on to Pamjit Palmer. She hasn't featured on our show for quite a long time, so let's kick it off.
Pamjit Palmer. I'm taking this call on behalf of ACT to support Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill. Very interesting to hear that speech, Madam Speaker, from the Green member. Member thinks that the weather forecast is important only for cricket matches, but the member forgets that our economy is reliant on agriculture and dairy. And the weather forecast is really important for these kind of industries, and that is why we are so focused on ensuring that our weather forecast system works the way it should. And the other point I want to highlight from that member's speech is that the member thinks that the science should not be politicized, and I fully agree with the member that science should not be politicized. And it is this government that had established a science systems advisory group to see how we can align science to improve innovation in our country and to contribute to our economic growth. And Madam Speaker, this bill is a bill, now coming back to the bill actually, Madam Speaker, is a bill I would say is not anything that is debatable in the sense, because it's a really good move. We know that it was earlier this year, it was announced that NIWA is going to acquire Met Services. So it's really good to bring these two entities together, our National Service and our Research Institute. That gives a lot more credibility and authority to the weather systems we have in our country. Madam Speaker, I also want to highlight this, that because of the Science Systems Advisory Group's work, our CRIs, our Crown Research Institutes, are being merged into public research organizations. And one of the newly formed public research organizations is New Zealand Institute for Earth Sciences. And now, because NIWA has become part of this, basically that is NIWA's new identity, and now this newly formed institute is going to acquire Met Services. We believe in, Madam Speaker, improving efficiency, improving productivity in the ACT team, and we believe by doing this, we will be avoiding duplication, we will be merging capabilities, we will be merging data, expertise, and technology that is going to work really well for the safety of people and also for economic activity in our country. So the ACT party is supporting this bill and commends this bill to the House. Thank you.
Even when you sit down there and have a situation where both sides of the House are agreed on something, you can get Pumjit Palmer will go and attack the opposite, a member from the other side on something that's pointing out, what some people believe that the weather service is important for is whether the cricket match rather than on economical development. But I think that's just probably the dishonest nature of Pumjit. If she wanted to be a more positive one, should also mention the fact that cricket games actually bring people into town. I mean, put it this way, if India is having a cricket match in Wellington, it has to have it at Westpac Stadium, not at the Basin Reserve, because the Basin Reserve can't handle when the lower Norfolk Island Indian population turns up at the basin, that they have to go to the stadium because the number, you can get 10 to 20,000 people coming for an India versus Black Caps match. So, something worth noting about cricket. Oh, and her country of origin for that particular part. However, she's been in New Zealand since I was 5 years old, so it's not like she's spent most of her life in New Zealand. Okay, let's get to Dr. David Wilson from New Zealand First. I think this is the second time featuring on our show. First time for 2026.
Dr. David Wilson.
Thank you. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to address the Meteorological Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill. Madam Speaker, I'd like to sort of reflect a little bit on what some of the opposition speakers have said to us, both from Labor and from the Greens, in support of this bill, because I don't think it's just simply a rationalisation. Who remembers the surface pressure map? The liney one on the... Yeah, I've had that. I used to go in my 20s and look at this thing, pick up the Herald, because that was the only place you could get it, so I could see what the tropical cyclones were going to do, hitting Fiji and providing waves for us. Well, they're a little bit more sophisticated these days at the Met Service. They've got great research, and I really, really enjoy having discussions with them. Maybe I'm a little bit of a nerd. But in terms of the sophisticated meteorological software and services they provide, and you start to combine that with what NIWA does, I've had some time to work with NIWA. NIWA have developed the land-based kingfish farming production at Bream Bay, and if you've ever been on the Tangaroa vessel and looked at the oceanographic capability that they have, you can say, wow, this is an amazing, amazing group of people adding to the value of our research and science in New Zealand. A lot of people, though, if you ask them, wouldn't know the difference between Met Service and NIWA. Isn't NIWA the guy that has, comes up on the TV and gives us the weather every day on the TVNZ? That's it. So what are they doing the weather, and why is Met Service doing the weather? A lot of people won't understand these nuances. On top of that, we have the geological and nuclear sciences coming together to form this new institute, which is called the New Zealand Institute for Earth Sciences. Well, I think this is actually more a case not of rationalisation. This is a case of synthesising these skills, recalibrating so that we can focus on some of the major issues confronting this country right now, around hazards, around climate change, and all those sorts of things. We're getting smart here, and this is the right way to work with our science institutes. It is focusing on the challenges of today, and interesting, we used to focus on nuclear sciences. I'm not sure that'll be part of the new challenge going forward. So, Madam Speaker, I think that this merge makes complete sense. And if we can get this recalibration, then we're going to get our scientists focusing on the research domains and equip us to meet those major challenges. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Well, that seems to be something that's a bit more on fact and not sitting down there and attacking the opposition. And maybe that's just the difference between New Zealand First and ACT. Or what certain speakers within the party would be the best way to sit there and look at it. Now, I think it's best that we move on to Kushla because she gets interrupted a lot from Judith Collins.
The government's objective is to bring meteorology, climate science, hydrology and oceanography together to create a stronger, more connected weather forecasting system to improve New Zealand's resilience to severe weather events. Madam Speaker, I must make a point that the heckling coming from that side is so ironic because it lasts longer than their speeches. If you want to have something to say, at least have the decency to make a decent contribution.
I assume that comment was not directed at me.
Okay, well, I'm just happy to have made that point, Madam Speaker, because it's quite a disgrace to these bills, I think, when people take more time, Madam Speaker, to interrupt quality contributions than they do to make their own.
Is that a point of order? A point of order, Honourable Judith Collins. Speaker, the fact you couldn't hear me for 5 points of order shows that the member who is speaking, if she could just realise the microphone is very live and it's very loud, and that's why people may be saying, can you keep it down a wee bit? It's not a point of order, so there's no need to speak to it.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, given the objectives I've just outlaid, why would we not support it, Madam Chair? In particular, why would I not support it when that's exactly what a holistic Māori worldview has had mai rā nō? When I worked in the broadcasting industry, Madam Chair, thankfully we didn't have to say, here are the meteorological reports for the day. It was as simple as saying, anei ngā tohu a tāwhiri mātea, me ngā tai a tangarua. Here is what's happening with the winds, here is what's happening with the tides. We know in Te Ao Māori, we've got tamanui te rā, we've got te awira, the lightning. So these are, we've got hine pukohurangi, the mist. These are concepts that we have been living with for a long, long time. For millennium, our ancestors lived by the moon, the tides, the stars, and even behaviour patterns of the birds and animals. Planting, harvesting, fishing, my favourite, diving, hunting, travel, life was determined by these connections with the elements. Now, while there are still many who are still very proficient in our maramataka Māori, the majority of us, Madam Chair, simply grab our phone, those of us who are not familiar with isobar patterns, simply grab our phones and check what the long-term Met Service forecast is. So therefore, Madam Chair, as I said, I'm standing on behalf of the Labour Party to support this bill. This bill also presents an amazing opportunity, Madam Chair, to continue the work started by Niwa, who worked with iwi, hapu and whānau to establish Te Kuaha, working together to integrate and embed mātauranga Māori with modern science to ensure quality monitoring processes that fit with our country. Through internships also provided through that program, Madam Chair, they have built not only Māori capability but vice versa. They've had access to mātauranga Māori to supplement the science. As you know, Madam Chair, Cyclone Gabriel, obviously a massive impact on Te Tai Rāwhiti, and I want to acknowledge all the emergency response people that we have out there, but that definitely emphasises the importance of quality monitoring. While I support this, Madam Chair, I do really think we can take considerations of the solutions that these might provide for weather-affected communities, particularly those in the area of Ikarua Rāwhiti, Madam Chair. So there are a lot of dispossessed people, but they want to stay on their whenua. So how can we utilise this science to support that? Rather than just find reasons people have to leave, how can we find reasons to support people in staying? This is also an opportunity to think about how this quality new organisation can support research that will help inform insurance companies in risk flood-prone areas so that they can not only stay there, but also have better consideration to be insured. There are some communities within Ikarua Rāwhiti now deemed uninsurable, and I think that is a positive opportunity that this bill could support. So, Madam Chair, as I've said, I think this bill has the opportunity to absolutely complement mātauranga Māori, and I commend the bill to the House.
And great on Kushla bringing out, and thank you, Kushla, for calling out the seat warmer speeches from the governing parties. So because they do so many of them, and they are shocking when the House goes into urgency. They are shocking for it. I mean, that's the reason why we're not covering them, because if you sort of go, hi, I commend this bill to the House, it's kind of a bit useless. You know. However, let's just quickly, we'll see how 1 second on the speech goes and the vote.
Sam Uffindale.
It's a pleasure to be able to rise and speak on the first reading of this bill. We focus on innovation and growing our economy. That is what this bill does. It helps to drive productivity, higher value jobs and better living standards for New Zealand. I commend it to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Meteorological Services Acquisition and Policies Legislation Amendment Bill be considered by the Economic Development, Science and Innovation Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I call on Government Order of...
And as you can see there, and because this particular select committee process hasn't been truncated, there's no need to sit there and do a vote on it. Talking about Sam Uffindale, possibly. I mean, Cameron Luxton could be that person, but then at the same time, he's probably going to stand in the new Mount Maunganui electorate. Yeah. Actually, I'm not going to be putting that comment on there because I don't want to be accused of showcasing that. But you're welcome to sit there and post on that. Okay, so let's get on to the submissions that are coming up available. Before submissions, I start back at work on Tuesday, so if you're in Wellington and would like to sit down there and buy some fruit and vegetables from us, please do so. Basically that. Okay, so back to the facts. Okay, so Land Transport Revenue Amendment Bill. So this is the bill to remove fuel excise tax and replace all vehicles with rucks. Closes on Thursday, the 8th of September. January. The Building and Construction Structuring Operational Licenses Amendment Bill, one of the two bills that Chris Pink read earlier tonight. That bill closes also on the 8th. We've also got the Drainlayers, the Building Construction Self-Certification by Plumbers and Drainlayers on Thursday, the 8th of January. We've got the Greyhound Industry Closure of Greyhound Racing Amendment Bill to be there. If you've got concerns the fact that this may result in possibly making greyhounds becoming extinct in New Zealand, possibly putting the bill there, that's something I do actually have a concern about, is the fact that we might lose a dog breed as a result. The Telecommunications Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday, the 14th of January. The Telecommunications and Other Matters Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday, the 14th of January. The bill that we've also covered, the Meteorologist Services and Acquisitions Policies Legislation Amendment Bill, closes on the 14th of January. The Education Training Systems Reform Bill closes on the 14th of January. The International Treaty Examination of Agreements to Establish Specific Something closes on the 21st of January. The Public Works Amendment Bill closes on the 27th of January, which is the day after Auckland Anniversary Day. The Emergency Management Bill number 2 closes on Tuesday, the 3rd of February, which is not long before Waitangi Day. So if you've got any of those, get out for putting your submissions, feel free to do so. Now, just before we go, I will just check the run sheets for next week, just to get what the bills are happening on there. Next week we are covering for just check the date on that. Yeah, for the Order Paper podcast, we're covering the Emergency Management number 2 bill first reading and the Public Works Amendment Bill first reading. So hopefully we can sit down there and give you some information, some inspiration on what bills you could sit there and submit for this summer. Thank you, Jason, for moderating for tonight. Kiwi Skirt is also on holiday. But she has sit there and do probably is a good thing she wasn't here tonight, because oh my god, this was an absolute nightmare of dropping on the streams. Beware, that was a fault with YouTube, but hopefully some of you have possibly looked at exploring our other locations. We also stream to with the same stream, with being Twitch and being Facebook Live. So doing that, and yeah, And yes, happy for that. Thanks for putting it on Twitch. Well, we've always been putting it on Twitch, but thanks for following us. This is what we need is, and feel free to sit down there and chat across multiple conversations here. You will see myself, and fingers crossed, Laura's back, and hopefully might have a couple more other panellists in the next coming month. I mean, put it this way, we can actually plan ahead at the moment because the MPs aren't at work. We'll see you all back here at 8 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time on Sunday, the 11th of January. Have a good evening.
Thank you for watching the Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the